The unnaturalness of doing wrong. But to return to my rule, well then, to take something away from someone else, to profit by another's loss, is more unnatural than death or destitution or pain or any other physical or external blow. To begin with, this strikes at the roots of human society and fellowship. For if we each of us propose to rob or injure one another for our personal gain, then we are clearly going to demolish what is more emphatically nature's creation than anything else in the whole world, namely the link that unites every human being with every other. Just imagine if each of our limbs had its own consciousness and saw advantage for itself in appropriating the nearest limb's strength. Of course the whole body would inevitably collapse and die. In precisely the same way, a general seizure and appropriation of other people's property would cause the collapse of the human community, the brotherhood of man. Granted that there is nothing unnatural in a man preferring to earn a living for himself rather than for someone else, what nature forbids is that we should increase our own means, property, and resources by plundering others. Indeed, this idea that one must not injure anybody else for one's own profit is not only natural law, an international valid principle. The same idea is also incorporated in the statutes which individual communities have framed for their national purposes. The whole point and intention of these statutes is that one citizen shall live safely with another. Anyone who attempts to undermine that association is punished with fines, imprisonment, exile, or death. The same conclusion follows even more forcibly from nature's rational principle, the law that governs gods and men alike. Whoever obeys this principle, and everyone who wants to live according to nature's laws must obey it, will never be guilty of coveting another man's goods or taking things from someone else and appropriating them for himself. For great-heartedness and heroism and courtesy and justice and generosity are far more in conformity with nature than self-indulgence or wealth or even life itself. But to despise this latter category of things, to attach no importance to them in comparison with the common good, really does need a heroic and lofty heart. In the same way, it is more truly natural to model oneself on Hercules and undergo the most terrible labors and troubles in order to help and save all the nations of the earth than, however superior you are in looks or strength, to live a secluded, untroubled life with plenty of money and pleasures. And mankind was grateful to Hercules for his services. Popular belief gave him a place among the gods. That is to say, the finest and noblest characters prefer a life of dedication to a life of self-indulgence, and one may conclude that such men conform with nature and are therefore incapable of doing harm to their fellow men. A man who wrongs another for his own benefit can be explained in two different ways. Either he does not see that what he is doing is unnatural, or he refuses to agree that death, destitution, pain, the loss of children, relations, and friends are less deplorable than doing wrong to another person. But if he sees nothing unnatural in wronging a fellow man, is he not beyond the reach of argument? He is taking away from human beings all that makes them human. If, however, he concedes that this ought to be avoided, yet still regards death, destitution, and pain as even more undesirable, he is mistaken. He ought not to concede that any damage either to his person or to his property is worse than a moral failure. So everyone ought to have the same purpose, to identify the interest of each with the interest of all. Once men grab for themselves, human society will completely collapse. But if nature prescribes, as she does, that every human being must help every other human being, whoever he is, just precisely because they are all human beings, then, by the same authority, all men have identical interests. Having identical interests means that we are all subject to one and the same law of nature, and that being so, the very least that such a law enjoins is that we must not wrong one another. This conclusion follows inevitably from the truth of the initial assumption. If people claim, as they sometimes do, that they have no intention of robbing their parents or brothers for their own gain, but that robbing their other compatriots is a different matter, they are not talking sense. For that is the same as denying their common interest with their fellow countrymen, and all the legal or social obligations that follow therefrom. A denial which shatters the whole fabric of national life. Another objection urges that one ought to take account of compatriots but not of foreigners. But people who put forward these arguments subvert the whole foundation of the human community, and its removal means the annihilation of all kindness, generosity, goodness, and justice, which is a sin against the immortal gods, since they were the creators of the society which such men are seeking to undermine. And the tightest of the bonds uniting that society is the belief that robbery from another man for the sake of one's personal gain is more unnatural than the endurance of any loss whatsoever to one's person or property, or even to one's very soul. That is, provided that no violation of justice is involved, seeing that of all the virtues, justice is the sovereign and queen.